Okay, let's unpack this. You know that image, right? The jolly guy in the red suit, big white beard, reindeer, the whole shebang, Santa Claus.
Yeah, pretty much everyone does.
Seems pretty straightforward, a symbol of Christmas cheer. But what if I told you there's a seriously unhinged side to his story?
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Buckle up, because we're about to embark on a bizarre journey, far beyond the milk and cookies. Welcome to Lifespan, the weekly podcast that digs up the dirt on the most outrageous, chaotic, and downright WTF lives ever lived.
All told in a fun and fascinating way.
Exactly. Share, rate, and follow the show for more wild stories.
What's fascinating here, though, is how a figure so ingrained in modern culture as, like, a purveyor of saccharine sweetness actually has roots in something far more complex, even unsettling sometimes.
Right. This bizarre journey you're hinting at starts with a real person. St. Nicholas, a 4th century bishop from Myra in what is now Turkey.
Mm-hmm. A long way from the North Pole.
Forget what you learned in school. This is history's unhinged side. We're not just talking about a kindly old soul who liked giving presents. We're diving headfirst into the crazy WTF stuff surrounding this St. Nicholas.
Unbelievable miracles, maybe some confrontations that might surprise people.
Oh yeah, and a legacy that's twisted and turned over centuries. Our roadmap for this bizarre journey. The testimonies, the early accounts, and later stories that built up his legend.
And these testimonies, it's important to remember, are essentially biographies of saints, hagiographies. They were written to inspire faith, detail miracles, not exactly objective history as we'd think of it today.
Good point. So we're dealing with a figure where historical reality and legendary embellishment are like totally intertwined.
Deeply intertwined, yes. We do know with reasonable certainty that Bishop Nicholas was a real person. Born around 270 AD in Patara, lived until approximately 343 AD.
Okay, so real guy.
Real guy. He inherited a considerable fortune, which, quite commendably, he used for charitable purposes. Became Bishop of Myra, known for generosity, strong commitment to, the burgeoning Christian faith.
And it wasn't exactly a walk in the park to be a Christian leader back then, was it?
Precisely. The 4th century was a turbulent time for the early church. Under Roman emperors like Diocletian, there were intense periods of persecution against Christians.
So Nicholas might have faced that.
Our Bishop Nicholas likely faced imprisonment and even torture for his beliefs. So right off the bat, we're not talking about some purely mythical figure who just popped up. There's real grit there.
Now, picture this 4th century world for a second. Lycia, where Myra was. It wasn't some backwater, right? It was a crossroads. What kind of place are we talking about?
Absolutely not a backwater. Lycia, on the southwestern coast of Anatolia, modern Turkey, held significant geographical and cultural importance. It was a real meeting point.
Roman.
Greek and Persian influences, its own distinct cultural identity, but definitely part of the Roman Empire by then. Romans brought infrastructure, Hellenistic culture, especially to coastal cities like Myra. Think of it as a vibrant hub, constantly interacting with different ideas, traditions.
But the real game changer was Christianity, wasn't it? How did that shift things in a place like Lycia?
Undeniably. Initially persecuted, but then Emperor Constantine grants it legal recognition early in the 4th century. That was a profound turning point.
So Christianity's on the rise.
Big time. Paganism was still around, absolutely, but Christianity provided this new lens to view influential figures, the dramatic stories that emerged around St. Nicholas. They likely gained momentum within this context.
Maybe even serving to symbolize, like, Christianity winning out over the old pagan ways.
Exactly. A way to frame the transition. Speaking of which, those stories.
Let's dive into the deep end, shall we? Miracles and mayhem, a bestiary of bizarre legends. Because the stories about St. Nicholas go way beyond just dropping off a few toys, wouldn't you say?
You're not kidding. The miracles attributed to him are often extraordinary, to say the least. Take, for example, the truly unsettling legend of the Pickled children.
Oh yeah, this one's a classic. If by classic you mean totally gruesome. So, as you might have heard, the story goes, there's this wicked butcher, or sometimes it's an innkeeper during a famine.
Right, context of desperation.
This horrible person lures these young boys, usually 3 of them, into their shop or inn, and then, well, they murder them.
And it gets worse, if you can imagine. The testimony details how this villain dismembers the children's bodies and then pickles them in barrels.
Ugh. Pickled.
Pickled. The truly grotesque intent was to then sell these remains as pork or ham to unsuspecting customers. Just imagine the desperation of the time for a story like that to even exist.
I know, right? You can see why this story sticks with you, even if it's horrifying. But then St. Nicholas shows up, often said to be traveling through the region to help with the famine.
Right, the hero arrives.
And miraculously, he uncovers this horrific crime. How does he figure it out? Divine intuition.
Through his prayers and divine intervention, essentially yes. St. Nicholas is credited with bringing these murdered and pickled boys back to life, completely restoring them.
Priest brings them back. Poof.
That's the legend, restores them to their families. It's a truly shocking tale, highlighting the incredible power attributed to him.
And it definitely cemented his reputation as the go-to guy for protecting kids, right? Patron saint of children makes a lot more sense with a story like that under his belt.
Absolutely. There's even art depicting him standing over a barrel with little resurrected kids popping out. It's quite the image.
What's really striking about this isn't just the gruesomeness, but maybe the deep-seated societal fear, famine, vulnerability. You need a powerful protector.
Precisely. This visceral narrative cemented his role as a guardian of the vulnerable in a way simple kindness couldn't.
And what's this connection some people make to brewers? That seems like a stretch from pickled kids.
It does seem odd, yeah. But this gruesome story is also cited by some as the reason he became the patron saint of brewers and coopers, the barrel makers.
Because of the barrels.
Partly, it's a rather indirect link, maybe tenuous. Some speculate it's about restoration, like the recreation involved in brewing, much like Nicholas recreated the children from the pickle brine. What do you make of that?
Talk about a career pivot. Okay, moving from pickled kids to something equally intense, maybe, but in a totally different way. The alleged slap of Arius at the Council of Nicaea.
Ah, yes. This is a fascinating, albeit historically dubious, legend. The First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD was a pivotal event convened by Emperor Constantine himself.
Right, the big church meeting.
It was called to address the theological controversy of Arianism. This doctrine, promoted by a presbyter named Arius, argued that Jesus Christ was a created being, subordinate to God the Father.
Which was a big problem for the sort of emerging Orthodox view.
A huge problem. It was considered heretical by many who believed in the divinity of Christ as equal to the Father.
It's a big theological smackdown in progress, and in walks St. Nicholas. And allegedly, he doesn't just argue, does he?
The legend recounts that St. Nicholas, utterly incensed by Arius's theological stance, maybe Arius was being particularly provocative, who knows, became so furious during the debate that he physically confronted Arius.
Physically, like?
Striking him either with a slap across the face or even a full-on punch. It's a dramatic image, to say the least. A bishop throwing hands at a council.
Wow! And apparently there were consequences for this holy haymaker. He didn't just get away with it.
According to the later accounts, yes. The other council fathers were supposedly so taken aback by this outburst that they temporarily imprisoned Nicholas or stripped him of his bishop's insignia, his omophorion and mitre.
So they disciplined him.
At least temporarily, according to the story. It paints a picture of a man whose faith was so fervent, so passionate, that he resorted to physical violence in his defense.
But the historical record on this is a bit fuzzy, right? Like, did it even happen? Was Nicholas even at the council?
That's precisely the point. The historical accuracy of this event is highly questionable. The story appears in later hagiographies, centuries later, not in contemporary accounts of the council itself.
So no minute saying, and then Nick clocked Arius.
No, nothing like that. Even St. Nicholas's presence at Nicaea, while traditionally accepted, is debated by some historians based on the surviving lists of attendees.
So if the historical evidence is weak, why do you think this particular story gains so much traction and even shows up in art?
Its popularity likely stems from the powerful image it presents. A saint as a strong, uncompromising defender of the true faith, willing to take dramatic, even physical action against heresy. It's a potent symbol, regardless of historical accuracy.
Still, it's a powerful image, a saint throwing down. How has that been interpreted over time? Righteous anger, or maybe just losing his temper?
Interpretations vary widely. Some see it as an example of righteous zeal, a necessary stand against dangerous error. Others view it as an act of impulsivity, perhaps even unbecoming of a bishop, losing control.
And you said it shows up in icons and stuff?
Yes. Interestingly, this legendary slap even shows up in some Eastern Orthodox iconography, further cementing its place in the popular narrative, even with the historical questions.
Okay, from theological fisticuffs to saving sailors. St. Nicholas was apparently a real friend to those on the high seas. What made him their go-to saint?
Absolutely. He has a very strong, very old reputation as a powerful protector of travelers by sea, which makes sense given Myra's location.
Because Myra was a port city.
A significant port city, yes. Numerous legends recount his miraculous interventions during dangerous voyages. Stories tell of him calming violent storms that threatened to sink ships.
How? Just by praying.
Often by prayer, yes, or sometimes even appearing physically on the ship during the storm. Legends also mention him appearing to distressed sailors who called upon his name, or guiding lost ships safely back to harbor.
Got any specific examples for us landlubbers? Paint a picture of him in action on the water.
Certainly. One popular tale describes how, during his own pilgrimage to the Holy Land, bishops traveled back then too, a fierce storm erupted. The terrified sailors cried out to St. Nicholas for help, and in response to his fervent prayers, the storm immediately subsided. Just like that. Calmed the waves.
Wow. Instant results.
Another legend recounts a tragic accident, where a sailor fell from a high mast during a voyage, maybe hit the deck, and died.
Oh, no.
St. Nicholas prayed over the body, and the sailor was miraculously brought back to life. Imagine the relief and awe of the crew.
Makes sense that these stories would take root, especially in a port city like Myra. People's livelihoods, even their lives, depended on safe passage. A storm could wipe you out.
Exactly. These legends of protection at sea would have resonated deeply with the maritime community. They established St. Nicholas as their special patron and protector, someone to invoke in times of peril on the water. It speaks to the very real dangers they face daily.
Now, for a story that's a bit more heartwarming, maybe, and definitely more in line with the Santa we know today, the secret dowries for the three impoverished sisters. This one feels like a direct line to the modern myth.
Yes, this is perhaps one of the most well-known and influential aspects of his legend. It directly leads to the Santa Claus tradition many people are familiar with today.
So what's the setup?
The story tells of a destitute father, perhaps a nobleman who had fallen on hard times. He was unable to provide the traditional dowry for his three daughters.
And no dowry meant bad news back then.
Very bad news. Without a dowry, their prospects for a suitable marriage were bleak. They face a grim possibility of either servitude or even being sold into prostitution by their desperate father. A truly awful situation for a family in that era.
That's pretty dire. So what did Nicholas do? Publicly offer assistance? Make a big show of it?
No, and this is key. His generosity was characterized by its secrecy. He didn't want the attention or praise. Moved by compassion, Nicholas is said to have secretly visited their home under the cover of night. Very sneaky. On 3 separate occasions, he threw bags of gold coins through an open window. Enough money for each daughter's dowry in turn. A clandestine act of kindness with profound consequences.
The original Secret Santa. And in some versions, those bags of gold had a specific landing spot, right? A detail that's become iconic.
Indeed. In some popular tellings of the story, the bags of gold miraculously landed right in their stockings, or maybe shoes, which were hanging by the fireplace to dry.
Yeah, there it is.
That's the detail. It's seen as a key origin point for the tradition of hanging stockings at Christmas, hoping they'll be filled with gifts. This act of secret gift-giving is a cornerstone of St. Nicholas's reputation for generosity and a direct inspiration for Santa.
Okay, so he's a protector, a sometime slapper, and a secret benefactor. But he also had a strong stance against the old ways, right? Battling paganism. What kind of zealot was he?
That's another significant aspect of his legendary actions, yeah. Stories depict St. Nicholas as a staunch defender of the Christian faith, actively fighting against the prevalent pagan beliefs and practices of his time.
How actively? Like, debating them?
Sometimes maybe, but the legends often go further. They recount him destroying pagan temples and shrines, sometimes through the sheer power of prayer alone, causing idols to topple and demons to flee.
Demons?
Demons associated with the pagan sites, yes. This reflects the ongoing, sometimes forceful struggle between the old polytheistic religions and the rising Christian faith in that period.
Any specific temples get the Nicholas treatment that the testimonies mention, like a famous one?
The Temple of Artemis in Myra itself is specifically mentioned as one of the major pagan sites that St. Nicholas is said to have eradicated, or at least played a role in its destruction.
Artemis, like the Greek goddess, that would have been a big deal.
A very big deal. Destroying such a prominent temple would have been a powerful statement. These accounts highlight the period of religious transition and the symbolic importance of Christian figures overcoming pagan sites.
And he wasn't exactly taking a live and let live approach, was he? It sounded like he was pretty forceful in his beliefs.
Not according to these legends, no. Some testimonies even suggest that St. Nicholas cursed those who continued to worship pagan gods, demonstrating a fierce and uncompromising commitment to his Christian beliefs.
Curse them. Wow.
It paints a picture of a man deeply convinced of his faith and willing to confront opposition quite directly, at least in the stories told about him later.
So we've got this incredible mix of the miraculous, the maybe violent, the generous, and the religiously zealous. How did these wild stories even come to be so widespread and last for so long? Where did they all come from?
That's the fascinating process of how legends grow, isn't it? These remarkable and often unbelievable stories didn't just appear overnight, fully formed. They're the result of centuries of retelling, adaptation, and cultural influence.
Like a snowball effect.
Kind of. The earliest accounts of his life, written quite some time after he died, provided a foundation. Then subsequent generations added their own details, maybe emphasized certain miracles, and offered new interpretations. It's like a historical game of telephone, with each telling adding new layers or nuances.
So the stories were shaped by what people needed or what resonated with them at the time. Survival, generosity, divine power. These are pretty universal themes.
Precisely. The cultural context played a crucial role. In times of famine, the story of the pickled children likely tapped into deep-seated fears about survival and maybe the hope for divine intervention.
Makes sense.
The importance of dowries in, medieval society made the tale of the three sisters particularly meaningful for families, especially those struggling. And as we discussed, the inherent dangers of sea travel naturally led to the veneration of a saint believed to offer divine protection. The stories met real needs.
And there's even a bit of a blend with older beliefs, right? Some connection to pagan figures that might have softened the transition to a new faith or just got mixed in.
Some scholars suggest the figure of St. Nicholas underwent a degree of syncretism, potentially merging with earlier pagan myths and deities.
Like who?
For example, there are theories, and they are just theories, that some aspects of the later Santa Claus figure share similarities with the Norse god Odin.
Odin.
Well, Odin was also sometimes depicted as a wise, white-bearded old man associated with winter, wisdom, gift-giving during Yule, and even aerial travel on his eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. Some sea echoes there.
Interesting. So bits and pieces get woven together.
It seems likely these blended traditions, consciously or unconsciously, could have further contributed to the evolving image of St. Nicholas over time, making him relatable across different cultural backgrounds.
And then art and literature really solidified things, didn't they? Gave these fluid stories more concrete form, maybe locked them down a bit?
Absolutely. Paintings and icons visually depicted the miracles, making them more vivid and memorable for the faithful, many of whom couldn't read. You see the Pickled Boys? You remember the story.
Right, and then much later.
And then much later, particularly in the 19th century, Clement Clarke Moore's 1823 poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, which most people know as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Yeah, everyone knows that one.
That poem was hugely influential. It really established the now familiar image of a jolly, plump Santa Claus with a sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, delivering presents down the chimney on Christmas Eve. That poem really locked in a lot of the modern iconography we associate purely with Santa, moving further from the Bishop of Myra.
Okay, so we've covered the big, well-known stuff, the kids, the slap, the sailors, the gold, stuff that even casual observers might have a passing familiarity with, even if they don't know the details.
Right, the greatest hits, so to speak.
But there's even more to this bizarre journey, right? Some stranger aspects of his sainthood beyond just benevolence or the famous miracles.
Indeed. While kindness and generosity are central to his legacy, digging deeper into the testimonies, the less common ones perhaps, reveals a figure with a number of other, sometimes quite peculiar attributes and legends. Prepare for some real head-scratchers.
Like what? He was a super pious baby. That's one I don't think I've heard. That sounds odd.
That's one of them. Tradition holds that Nicholas displayed remarkable piety even in infancy, like from day one.
Seriously, what did he do? Refuse milk?
Pretty much. Stories claim he would only nurse once on Wednesdays and Fridays, traditional Christian fasting days, and fasted the rest of the time, as an infant.
That's intense.
This early asceticism was interpreted later as a clear sign of his future holiness. Talk about a dedicated infant. What does that level of early devotion, even if legendary, suggest about the kind of figure he was believed to be? Total devotion from birth.
Wow, skipping meals before he could even ask for them. Okay, what else? He was like a supernatural exterminator, dealing with more than just bad guys or storms.
Legends also portray St. Nicholas as a powerful exorcist and demon slayer, So yes, a supernatural exterminator is one way to put it.
Exorcising people.
People, yes, said to have battled and expelled demons from possessed individuals, but also from cursed objects, and even, as we touched on, entire pagan temples, demonstrating a strong spiritual authority over evil forces.
How did he do it? Just prayer?
Often prayer is cited. One account describes him using prayer to demolish pagan temples and drive out the unclean spirits supposedly residing within. Another rather dramatic tale recounts him chopping down a tree in a place called Placoma.
Why chop down a tree?
Because it was possessed by a demon. Apparently it was causing problems for the locals. So Nicholas takes an axe to a demon-possessed tree. You can't make this stuff up. Or, well, someone did.
Demon-possessed trees. Okay, this is getting wilder and wilder. What about the time he used his brain, or maybe his mind, to feed people? That sounds unusual. Telepathic groceries?
Not quite telepathic groceries, but close. Ah, yes, the rather unusual legend of him feeding the hungry with his mind, or perhaps more accurately, through a dream manifestation.
Oh, explain that one.
During a severe famine in Myra, he is said to have appeared in a dream to an Italian merchant whose ships, laden with grain, were docked in a nearby port, maybe planning to go elsewhere.
So he astral projected or something?
In the dream, Nicholas identified himself and urged the merchant to divert some grain to Myra, promising payment. The merchant, naturally skeptical, woke up to find the promised payment, maybe gold coins, miraculously appeared in his hands.
Whoa.
Convinced by this, the merchant diverted his shipment of grain to the starving people of Myra. A truly unique form of intervention, wouldn't you agree? Using dreams and miraculous payments.
Definitely different from throwing gold in stockings. He was also apparently a stickler for justice, getting involved in earthly affairs in a pretty direct, physical way sometimes.
Several stories highlight St. Nicholas's role as an intervener in matters of justice, often with dramatic results, stopping things right as they happened.
Like what? Stopping a trial.
Even more dramatic. In one famous account, 3 imperial officers were unjustly condemned to death by local authorities while Nicholas was away. He supposedly learned of this, perhaps supernaturally rushed back.
Just in time.
Just in time. He arrived at the execution ground as the executioner was raising his sword. Nicholas is said to have physically grabbed the sword, stopping the beheading of these 3 innocent men.
He just grabbed the sword from the executioner.
That's the story. Physically prevented the execution. Talk about stopping something at the last minute. What kind of authority or sheer force of personality must he have been believed to wield to pull something like that off?
Seriously. And then there's the story of the kidnapped kid and the golden cup. That sounds like something straight out of a fairy tale.
It does have that feel, doesn't it? Another remarkable legend tells of St. Nicholas rescuing a young boy named Basilios from Myra.
What happened to Basilios?
He had been kidnapped, maybe during a raid, and taken far away, forced to serve as a cupbearer for a foreign ruler, possibly an emir. His parents were devastated, praying constantly to St. Nicholas on his feast day.
And Nicholas heard them.
According to the legend, yes. While his parents prayed, St. Nicholas miraculously appeared to Basilios, perhaps in the emir's court, grabbed him, and instantly transported him back to his family in Myra.
Just beamed him home.
Instantly. And the detail they always add is that he was still holding the ruler's valuable golden cup he'd been serving from. Imagine the parents' joy and the ruler's confusion. It's a testament to the belief in his far-reaching, instantaneous power.
Okay, but perhaps the strangest part of this whole bizarre journey, for me anyway, is what happened to Nicholas after he died, the holy heist. You mentioned his bones taking a little trip.
Yes, the theft of his relics in 1087 AD is a truly bizarre episode in his story. Maybe the most bizarre.
Relics were a big deal back then, right?
Hugely important.
Rare.
Saints' bones, bits of clothing, anything associated with them were believed to hold miraculous power, bring pilgrims, prestige, and protection to wherever they were housed.
Yeah.
Very valuable commodities.
So someone wanted Nicholas's bones.
Italian sailors from the city of Bari, on the Adriatic coast of Italy, they were seeking to acquire prestigious relics for their city. So they sailed to Myra, which was then under Seljuk Turk control, and perhaps less well guarded.
And just took them.
They basically raided his tomb in the church in Myra and stole his major bones, bringing them back to Bari, where a magnificent basilica was built to house them.
They called it a holy theft. Seriously.
That's often how it's described, yeah.
Yeah.
A piafraus, a pious fraud or theft.
Yeah.
While it seems morally questionable to us, stealing relics wasn't entirely uncommon then, seen sometimes as a saint willing to relocate.
Did they get all of them?
Not quite. The remaining smaller bone fragments were later taken, in a similar fashion, by Venetian sailors during the First Crusade and taken to Venice. So he's got a split between Bari and Venice.
Wow, and they still commemorate the theft in Bari.
Oh, yes. To this day, the arrival of the relics in May 1087 is celebrated with a huge festival in Bari. So a saint's bone's the ultimate souvenir. You definitely can't get that at the airport gift shop.
So bits of St. Nicholas are scattered across Italy. You couldn't make this stuff up. And what about this Manna of St. Nicholas? That sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, not a historical account. Is it like magical dew?
It does sound fantastical.
Eh.
Since his death, or at least since the relics arrived in Bari, a mysterious clear liquid, often described as having a sweet smell like roses or myrrh and possessing healing properties, is said to exude from his relics.
Exude, like the bones are sweating.
Sort of, yeah. Particularly from his tomb in the crypt in Bari. This liquid, known traditionally as manna, or sometimes myrrh of St. Nicholas, has been collected for centuries using sponges or cotton swabs.
And people think it heals them.
Many believers attribute miraculous healings to it, yes. It's collected annually on his feast day and distributed in small vials to the faithful.
Okay, but there's got to be a more down-to-earth explanation for this weeping tomb, right? Something a bit less miraculous.
Indeed. Skeptics and scientists have looked into it. Scientific analysis in the 20th century revealed the liquid to be primarily pure water.
Just water.
Just water. The most likely explanation is condensation occurring within the sealed marble tomb due to temperature differences and humidity in the crypt, possibly combined with capillary action.
So it's basically tomb sweat.
That's a less poetic way to put it, but essentially, yes, natural condensation. However, for believers, it remains a sacred substance, a tangible sign of the saint's presence and miraculous power. The power of belief is quite something, isn't it? Even when there's a scientific explanation.
From a charitable bishop to stolen bones and weeping tombs, it's quite a trajectory. So how did this extraordinary, complex, sometimes violent, miracle-working figure morph into the jolly, purely benevolent Santa Claus we know today, the one delivering toys in a sleigh? It's a pretty big leap.
The transformation is a really fascinating study in cultural evolution, happening over centuries and across different countries. It wasn't overnight.
Where did it start?
It involved a crucial merging with Dutch traditions of Sinterklaas. The Dutch kept the veneration of St. Nicholas strong even after the Reformation. Their Sinterklaas, based on the saint, also brought gifts on his feast day, December 6th, sometimes accompanied by helpers.
Ah, Sinterklaas. I've heard of him.
When Dutch settlers came to America, they brought Sinterklaas with them. Over time, in the multicultural melting pot of America, his image and traditions blended with other figures and customs.
Like Father Christmas from England.
Like Father Christmas, yeah, and perhaps those Nordic folklore elements we mentioned. The flying sleigh, the reindeer got incorporated, maybe influenced by Moore's poem. The date shifted from December 6th to Christmas Eve Day.
And then advertising got involved?
Oh, absolutely. The modern image of Santa Claus, the red suit with white fur trim, the big belly, the rosy cheeks, was really solidified and popularized in the 19th and 20th centuries through literature, illustrations by artists like Thomas Nast, and especially advertising campaigns.
Coca-Cola gets mentioned a lot.
Coca-Cola's iconic campaigns from the 1930s onwards, featuring Haddon Sundblom's paintings of Santa, were hugely influential in cementing that specific image globally. It bears relatively little resemblance to the 4th century Bishop of Myra by that point.
It's a testament to how cultural symbols can just evolve and change meaning over time, isn't it?
Completely. Almost unrecognizable from the original in some ways.
And even in modern times, the interpretations keep evolving in surprising ways, don't they? I mean, you mentioned the slapper around the internet.
Absolutely. That legendary slap of Arius becoming an internet meme, often used humorously to represent righteous indignation. That's a rather unexpected afterlife for a moment of alleged theological violence from the 4th century.
Totally bizarre.
And Santa Claus himself has been endlessly reinterpreted in movies, books, popular culture, sometimes cynical, sometimes magical, sometimes action hero Santa. It seems like every generation finds a new way to engage with the legend or maybe project onto it.
And the list of unexpected patronages for St. Nicholas is pretty wild too, right? It's not just children and sailors. Pawnbrokers. Repentant thieves. How did he end up being the go-to guy for such a diverse, sometimes contradictory group?
It is quite the list. He's the patron saint of a truly diverse range of groups. Pawnbrokers, that's likely due to the 3 bags of gold in the dowry story, seen as symbol of loans or collateral. The 3 golden balls are still a pawnbroker symbol.
Okay, that makes some sense. What about thieves?
Repentant thieves, specifically.
Mm.
That probably connects to his role in justice, maybe intervening for the wrongly accused, but also representing forgiveness and the potential for redemption.
And others.
Unmarried girls, obviously because the dowry story helping them get married. Merchants and brewers we've touched on. Archers, for some reason. And
Yeah.
even in some specific regional traditions, wolves. Don't ask me why wolves.
Wolves. Okay, now you're just making things up.
Huh. I promise, it's out there in some folklore. These varied patronages really reflect the many facets of his legends and the different ways people have sought his intercession throughout history. Each group found a connection, however strange it might seem to us, to a specific aspect of his story.
It's amazing to think about his historical veneration across different branches of Christianity, both East and West. He seems like a figure who really transcended some of those divides, at least for a long time.
Yes, for centuries, St. Nicholas was one of the most popular and widely venerated saints in both the Eastern Orthodox and Western Roman Catholic churches,
Wow.
maybe second only to the Virgin Mary in terms of popularity at times.
Wow.
Numerous churches were dedicated to him across Europe and the Byzantine world. His feast day, December 6th, has been a significant celebration, often involving gift-giving and special foods, for over 1,000 years.
But the Reformation changed things a bit in the West.
It did. The Protestant Reformation led to a general decline in the veneration of saints in many parts of Northern Europe. Many reformers discouraged it. But the legend of St. Nicholas, the gift-giver, persisted strongly, particularly in places like Holland with Sinterklaas. That persistence laid the groundwork for the modern Santa Claus figure to emerge later.
But in our more secular age, there's definitely a lot of skepticism about the fantastical elements, right? We like our history a bit more documented, maybe less pickled children and demon trees.
Absolutely, that's a very common modern perspective. Scholars often point to the lack of contemporary evidence for many of the more miraculous aspects of his life, like we discussed with the Nicaea slap. The stories were written down much later.
So people try to separate the man from the myth.
There's a lot of effort to distinguish between the probable historical Bishop Nicholas of Myra, the legendary miracle-working St. Nicholas of the hagiographies, and the modern, largely commercialized Santa Claus. It's a frequent topic of discussion and debate, trying to untangle those threads.
And it hasn't all been smooth sailing in terms of public perception either, has it? Some controversies that have popped up around this figure or his derivatives.
Indeed. It's not all just nostalgia and feel-good stories. The story of him slapping Arius, for instance, has sparked debate, especially online, about the appropriateness of violence, even symbolic violence, in religious contexts or figures held up as role models.
And the commercial side.
The intense commercialization of Santa Claus is often criticized, quite heavily sometimes, for overshadowing the original saint's religious significance. His focus on charity for the poor and turning Christmas into just about getting stuff.
Yeah, you hear that every year.
And of course, there's this significant controversy surrounding the character of Black Pete, or Zwarte Piet, the traditional companion of Sinterklaas in Dutch folklore.
Right, that's been a big issue.
Yes, the use of blackface and racist stereotypes associated with the character has led to widespread protests and important ongoing discussions about racism, representation, and how traditions need to evolve or be reevaluated. It shows these figures aren't static. They interact with current social issues.
So we've taken a truly bizarre journey, haven't we? From a real historical figure, likely charitable, probably persecuted,
To a collection of frankly unbelievable miracles, unexpected violent outbursts, secret gifts, battles with demons.
and a truly strange afterlife for his earthly remains involving theft and leaking tombs. It's been quite the exploration of the crazy WTF stuff.
It has been a wild ride indeed. But despite the often fantastical, sometimes contradictory nature of the testimonies, his impact on global culture is just undeniable. It's massive and lasting.
From a 4th century bishop in Turkey known for his charity, somehow transforming over nearly 1,700 years into the modern-day North Pole-dwelling, gift-giving icon of Santa Claus. His story just keeps evolving, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you wonder what future generations will make of it all, how the story will shift next.
Ultimately, maybe the enduring power of the St. Nicholas narrative, in all its sometimes unbelievable forms, lies in its ability to tap into something deep, generosity, hope, maybe wonder.
I think so. And perhaps that's why it continues to resonate, even in its most peculiar, bizarre, or historically questionable forms. It speaks to something enduring in the human spirit.
So, as you reflect on this bizarre journey through the life and legends of St. Nicholas, consider which of these incredible testimonies resonated with you the most. Was it the pickled kids, the slap,
Yeah.
the secret gold? Or maybe it just sparked more questions about the enduring nature of belief, how legends grow, and how history gets weird. Thanks for joining us on Lifespan.